So, welcome. I think that we are still waiting for a couple of students who are riding here by bus. I also think that some of you anticipated academic 15 minutes, which we weren't really planning on, but that's fine. Is there a lot of people still out there? There was no response to that. I will start anyway, because we have a schedule and we're going to try to keep it. I am Björn. I work with a company called Softwerk, and I also work a little bit with the university here. And today I'm mostly here because I work with the university. We are very happy to see so many of you here today. There's actually been almost 250 people signing on to Stora IT-kompetensdagen 2017, which is by far a record. I think you'll also see a lot of very interesting companies are here to meet you. There are more than double the amount of companies that are interested in you today, which should be a good thing for you guys. I actually wanted to start with a couple of practical pieces of information. Firstly, this is what we're going to do until lunch. We're going to sit here and we're going to listen to a couple of very interesting people who want to... 10 more? Okay, thank you. That's going to teach you a little bit about how it is in the real world, and also a little bit how you should reason around creating your thesis. So first here today, for a little while longer, you have to listen to me, because I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk a little bit about what the competence need is in the region, so a little bit how you should fine-tune your profile, I guess. After me, Velf will talk a little bit about how you should position your thesis and how you should think when you look at thesis and thesis work. After that, we're going to have a fruit break, and then we're going to listen to Experis, who's going to teach us a little bit about LinkedIn, which is a very important tool that we employers use daily. Then we're going to listen to Drivhuset, which is a young entrepreneur company that's situated here in the university, which I think you know. After that, the companies themselves are going to come in here, and we're going to talk a little bit about what we're going to do during the afternoon. For those of you who have signed up for this in advance and had gotten an accept for this, there will be lunch. Those of you who haven't and just kind of straddled in anyway, you're very welcome to be here to talk with the companies, etc., but you will not get lunch. There will be speed dating in the afternoon with the 22 companies that are here. I hope that you all have picked up one of these small pamphlets which shows you what the companies are interested in. And if you want to go for a speed date, I must tell you that the companies are expecting you to be rather senior. We don't think that it's relevant for you to take a speed date if you are on the first year of your education. This is something primarily thought of for people who are looking for a thesis work or future employment. And also, Diana wanted me to mention the fact that we are starting up a female IT network. The first meeting for this group or this network will be the 24th of November, somewhere in the university, also in the universe. And I would advise all of you, females of course, to sign up to this, because it's getting a lot of traction, and I think this will be something very interesting to look at in the future. If you need more information about that, either Google lnu.se for female IT network, or ask Diana. She's the not so tall and not so white girl with the yellow jacket. So that's it about the practical information. I'm also a little bit interested in knowing how many in this room are exchange students. Hands up. How many in this room are from Blekinge, BTH? Okay, well, you're welcome either way. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about what you're supposed to become and why you want to become that. Because I think in the university you're being taught that, it's good to think very broadly, and whatever you want to do, you should do it. But I think also that there's a reality in the region. If you're interested in working in this region, you should also know what kind of competences and what kind of expertise are valued with the employers around here. And we actually have a couple of sessions around this, I think, during this before lunch. One thing that you should consider is how companies in this region are positioned. We basically, we basically have two sorts of companies. Either we have rather small companies with a small IT footprint, or we have large IT companies with which basically are more of a manufacturer of larger code bases. So one have to kind of consider both of these tracks, and also perhaps look a little bit inside to think about: am I interested in working in a large company, or am I more interested in being part of a small agile team, perhaps? If you are to work in the smaller companies, you need to be rather versatile. You need to be and if this is interesting, you should also consider that, I mean, if you're to start your own company and work within IT, you kind of have to be a developer, because if you don't develop, you cannot be a tester if you're going to work for yourself, because there won't be anything to test. You cannot probably not be a IT security guy either, because then you're a consultant, and then you're not your own company, you're more of a consultant. So, and when you think about it, if you start your company and you work with development, perhaps you take on a couple of small projects and you develop, and then you realize, I need another guy. Or a girl, sorry. What will you then employ? Well, you will employ another developer, probably also another pretty versatile developer, because you need to have the opportunity to expand in development. And you guys or girls that are going to work with this will probably do some testing as well. And this is a very common kind of company in this region. Small companies with 1 to 2 developers, and these guys do everything in the company related to IT. But again, the expertise of these people has to be somewhat related to development. And probably you want to go with the route, perhaps a full stack Java developer, perhaps, or a web developer would also be this kind of profile that would be interesting. If we are to look at a little bit bigger companies, say we walk to 30 employees, which is not a very common size in this region. The absolutely most common sizes are around 5 people. But if we are to work in the little bigger schema, then yeah, you will see perhaps one IT tech or like a DevOps type of person, and perhaps also a tester. But the vast majority here will also be some kind of developers, some kind of probably full stack developers as well. Because again, if you are a full stack developer, and when I sell, do you know what I mean when I say a full stack developer? Yeah, that means that you're confident both in the front end and the back end of the code, so to speak. The only way for you to get a job that's not related to this is to go to the code manufacturers that employ 50 or more developers, I would say. And we actually do have a couple of these people here today. Like Gears of Leo, Horam Software, IST, Play and Go, Fort Knox. And if that's interesting, then there are a number of other things that you can do. You can dive into testing. And when I say testing, by the way, I'm not talking about manual testing. I'm talking about a much more advanced situation than what we saw just a couple of years ago. If you are to be a tester, you actually need to know development. Because if today we don't do as much manual testing anymore. So it's very important that you can work with automatization of unit testing, etc. We can talk about UX and any user interaction kind of things, which is very much so expanding. And perhaps that would also be something that you could work with a smaller web development bureau or something like that. Web developer, I have mentioned before. These are needed both in the smaller and also in the larger companies, of course. Native mobile is a very interesting part in this, because these, if you are to specialize in native mobile development, my experience is that you will be kind of, just want to work with this because you turn into a mobile developer. And I would actually advise against moving too far into this, because as we see it today, I work with a consultant company and we have a couple of native mobile developers, and they're kind of hard to find full-time jobs for, because the industry is moving towards platform-independent technology like React or whatever, because it's too expensive to keep one guy for each technology. This being said, we will still need a couple of native developers, because usually there are some tips and tricks that we need to take care of. But I would say it's not a very broad chance of getting good jobs here. Security, of course, is moving forward. You would probably work with the larger companies, the ones who have some kind of server farms or whatever. And I know that there's a strong education here in LNU as well that covers this. And yes, there is a future in this, of course. Another thing that's emerging is the DevOps. I've mentioned this before. This is not just a server operator or someone who takes care of Linux machines, but one that's actually tightly connected to the development teams and probably has some kind of development expertise as well, so he can help with finding issues when we move from development to more real environment, so to say. If you want to be more like me, for instance, you can also choose the path of being a product owner, which is also a very important role and something that's quite common in most of the larger companies. And if you are to walk this path, you need to know as well that your absolutely most important skill is to be able to talk to other people and not growing tired of nagging at people all the time because they're not doing what they're supposed to. I could mention, artificial intelligence. I could mention big data, blah, blah, blah. But you've heard these words so many times. Yes, we are going to do more in all these techniques, and we're going to do more in techniques that we haven't even mentioned yet. If you are to work as a developer, you will have to be someone who likes standing on the edge. You need to have some kind of interest in technical details. Otherwise, you will not find this job challenging or interesting. But to sum all this up, I would say, if you cannot really decide what you want to do, if you cannot really, I'm going to do that, become a full-stack Java developer, because in this region, you will get a job as a full-stack Java developer. It's as easy as that. And I don't think I have to mention this, but there's a huge, almost desperate need for development resources. Most of the companies, most of the large companies are looking at trying to grow with between 30 and 40 and 50%. just in the very, very short future, which means that there's no way for all these companies to find all these resources. And that means that either you have to step up and become much more people than you are here, or they will have to look at outsourcing. And none of the companies really do want to do outsourcing. They just might be forced to do so if they are to grow at the pace that they're anticipating. I think that was basically what I wanted to talk about. I just came back actually from Jönköping, where I went to Elmia's subcontractor fair. And this was also quite interesting because I think the industry will be the new big track for people like us. I think because it's so obvious when you talk to all these people that they're all very aware of that they're not doing anything on with all the fancy buzzwords as Internet of Things and big data and this machine learning everyone has heard about. But none of them are doing anything about it right now because they don't understand it. And this will be a boom. And this will be a boom pretty soon. And that will require most of us to clone ourselves because there are not enough developers in this region to cover also that problem, which again comes back to the fact that you're actually looking at a very bright future because there will be a need for you guys and there will be a lot of very interesting jobs. I think I'm going to be done like that, and I'm going to leave to Velf, who's going to be more structured and talk perhaps a little bit more interesting than I do as well. Velf is a professor at the university and also one of my colleagues because he also works at Softvac. So we're all tightly connected. But over to you.